Never miss an episode of the Final Furlong podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Emmet Kennedy.
Welcome to another RaceiQ special on the Final Furlong podcast. We're going to get the secrets of RaceiQ ahead of Glorious Goodwood, hopefully to give us loads of profits. Paige Fuller from RaceiQ, the lead data analyst, is alongside us. Paige, welcome back to the show.
Hi Emmet, thanks for having me back.
Thank you for coming back on. It's great to get your insight again. You've got all kinds of different things for us. Pace analysis, draw analysis, biases, everything to get stuck into. But the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the Sussex Stakes, which I don't know. Gee, who's going to win the Sussex Stakes this year? What a conundrum. Could it be the overwhelming odds-on favourite Field of Gold, perhaps, who's got an official rating of 123, only a pound superior to Rosalien, your beloved Rosalien, 122. And then we've got good old Henri Matisse, who I still have a love affair with, and plenty of other horses in there as well. At 9-4 on is the price about Field of Gold to go and win this for the Gosdens yet again. But is he as far clear as certainly visually it looks?
It's a very good question. And we've sort of got a horse which is very similar in profile to Rosalien. But as you say, he's carrying less weight because he's a 3-year-old. He's been beaten already this season. But visually at Royal Ascot, he looked like an absolute rocket. So what I'm looking forward to is seeing how basically Rosalien and Field of Gold stack up against each other because they are very similar horses. I think we all know why Field of Gold got beaten in the Guineas is because they weren't able to use the turn of foot really that he has, or the race didn't pan out in the way that he could use that electric turn of foot. We saw that at the Curragh next time, and we saw it at Royal Ascot. But in the back of my mind, I can't see how he's just gonna do it again. Like, he's had so many races this season, and what's he been beaten? Like, Henri Matisse was a good second. But I don't know.
Katie Gosden, turn off the podcast just for a few minutes, Katie.
I think it's all about what horses are beaten when they're sort of 3-4-year-olds. And yes, Rosalien's been beaten as well this season. But we know that he comes on for his first run of the season. It's why he got beaten the Guineas last year. Then he was very impressive, the next twice. He clearly needed to come on for the run in the lock-in. It was a weird race as well, where both times that we've seen Rosalien this season, they've been quite steady. He's a horse that likes to sit further out the back of a race, and he hasn't been able to use his turn of foot in the same way. I think Goodwood is going to be a track that suits his style of running a lot better. I think it will suit Field of Gold as well, as I say, because I think they're both horses that have this turn of foot that they like to apply at a certain point of the race. Funny enough, actually, the pair of them, when they both won the Irish Guineas, reached like almost identical top speeds in winning the races, which I thought was really weird that they've kind of almost profiled exactly the same way in the data. And I think it's just the weight difference that, for me, splits the pair of them. I think people are being too harsh on Rosalien. Yes, he got beaten by Docklands at Royal Ascot, but that was a completely falsely run race. They went absolutely crawling through that race and then sprinted at the end, and Docklands just got first run on him. They finished the final 2 furlongs in exactly the same amount of time. Rosalien just couldn't peg it back. But I don't think that's was a better horse on the day. Well, he was a better horse on the day because they went so steady, but Docklands was just better placed on the day, and I think that happened in the lock-in as well. And I just don't think he's a straightforward horse, which is why he's getting beaten, not because he's not a good enough horse, if that makes sense.
So it's not ability, it's circumstance. It's his first run of the season, and then if you run the Queen Anne 5 times, you're probably going to get 5 different results.
That's my gut feeling with him. Like, I'm not going to go down on my shield like that, and I've taken a very long time to talk my sort of weird brain interpretation of the data. But that's just, I don't think it's as clear cut. I can't see any reason why you wouldn't back Field of Gold, but I personally wouldn't be backing him at those odds because I just think there are too many question marks over the other horses in the sense of they haven't had the best run of the race. And that's just my gut feeling. I think Henry Matisse was beaten fair and square in James's Palace, which is why, he's not going to be the horse that beats Field of Gold. But I just think we're being very quick to write off the older horses in this race because he looks so special in the St. I don't think we're giving credit to the form of the other horses either.
Okay, this is what I love about you, Paige. You never say what I expect you to say. Because what I was expecting you to say was, well, Field of Gold is clear on metrics, clear on data. He's rated 123. That probably underestimates what he's capable of. He's almost certainly better than that. He's the improving up-and-comer, and they have to give him weight. This lot has no chance against him. So he just goes and wins. Now, do you want to go and back him at that price? It's Goodwood. It's a track that most jockeys absolutely aesthetically pleasing, but they hate it because it's just horses can get stuck. You need look and running. It's an undulating track. It's not one that favors backing odds-on favorites. You skip it and try and look for something else. But he's the most likely winner, and that's not what you're saying at all. And I would say, if you look at Field of Gold's performances this season, yeah, you can certainly. I'm not entirely certain about that 2,000 guineas. I have two ways of thinking about Shadow of Light. I slated Shadow of Light on this show a couple of weeks ago, and two people who work for Godolphin both send me lengthy messages about how I'm wrong. Completely wrong about that. And actually, it's funny when you look at something with the benefit of hindsight. Maybe that's rattling around my brain, or maybe it's the fact that I rewatched the Prix-Jean Prat the other day. He's not beaten far in that, and he's probably drawn on the wrong side. So that form's not bad. Field of Gold, I'm pretty certain, should have been second in the Eclipse. That's a whole thing. I'm not going to go into a row with you about that, but I think he probably was second best that day. Even if that's not true, Henri Matisse is a French 2,000 guineas winner. Ruling Court is a 2,000 guineas winner, and he's murdered them. Rezalian got beaten by Docklands. Lake Forest finished fourth, and he got turned over in a 7 furlong race at York the next day. The 3-year-old classic form from last season is Rezalian beating... He gets beaten by Notable Speech, who we just saw getting beaten fair and square in the July Cup, beaten fair and square in the Queen Anne, beaten fair and square in the Lockinge. He beats Hatem, and River Tiber in the Irish 2,000 guineas. He beats Henry Longfellow in the St. James's Palace Stakes. That form's not good enough.
It's a really unpopular opinion, and I will say that I have limitations because unfortunately we lost the data for the data malfunction for the St. James's Palace, which is
That's for the engineers, by the way. That's for the engineers who managed to mess that up.
Not ideal.
Oh, it's okay. We can rebuild it. No, you can't.
Yeah, for the record, not us. It was just part downstream of us. But anyway.
Yeah, not a RaceiQ issue. Let me clarify. Not a RaceiQ problem. RaceiQ not to blame for that.
But I'm probably biased as well because I really like Docklands. I appreciate that, he might have got lucky in the Queen Anne, but I think everyone's also underplaying his first time out at Ascot this season.
To Sardinian Warrior.
Get really to his second Sardinian Warrior, who I think would have won the Queen Anne, to be honest.
So do I.
I really fancy the Queen Anne. But the win time of that Royal Ascot race was 1 minute 36 sorry, no, not Royal Ascot. The win time of that race was 1 minute 36.73. And that was quicker than the 2024 running of the Queen Anne, which was running 1 minute 38.04. Obviously, again, this year we can't really take notice because it was so steadily run. You can't comparison, but I think we're underestimating. And Docklands obviously got beaten at Epsom next time, but he got no luck in running. Again, I think he was very unlucky. Ryan Moore had a brilliant run through on Persica. I think it'd be really dangerous to underestimate that form from Docklands because he's very consistent. He's an Ascot specialist, and I think he was best placed on the day, and Rezalian was up against a horse that is an absolute straight mile Ascot specialist. For that reason, I also think Docklands has got a great each way shot in this race as well, because I think I know, but
do I need to check your temperature? Are you feeling okay?
But okay, what else is placed? We already know that Henry Matisse got beaten fair and square in St James's Palace. I know that you like him. But if you're working back through the rest of the horses, if you had 3 places, tell me who fills the 3rd spot.
Henri Matisse.
But isn't this why it's such a great race? Because the 4 of them are each other's form, which isn't perfect. And we're just going to see this great clashing across the ages of, how does the current 3-year-old crop stack up against the older lot? Are they just going to be made to look very average, and then we go, oh, blimey, the milers are really not as exciting as we thought they were?
Well, if we're expanding it out, there's a horse who's massively overpriced, and that's Karl Spackler, because now he's going to go going back round a bend. And he does have some good form to his name, and he is a fast horse. I know that people will scoff at that Keeneland win at the start of the season, but that was good. His run in the Breeders' Cup Mile, he probably should have been closer that day with the way the race panned out for him. And prior to that, he had beaten More Than Looks fair and square and been the best horse on both occasions, and then More Than Looks blows right by him in the Breeders' Cup Mile. If you wanted to take Notable Speech really seriously, there wasn't that much between Karl Spackler and Notable Speech in the Breeders' Cup Mile, and yet there was a massive discrepancy between the two of them at Royal Ascot, and he was only beaten 3 lengths there. So that was his first ever run for Kieran Maher. It was his first run in Britain, and it was on a straight track. Now he gets to go around a bend. The question for him is, how are you going to cope with an undulating track? But I could absolutely make the argument that at 40-1, having kept him in the Northern Hemisphere, specifically to run in this race, that's too big. So wouldn't be shocked if he was the one who finished 3rd. Wouldn't be that shocked if he finished 2nd. If Field of Gold, if this ends up being sweet, sweet justice for Kieran Schumacher, that Buick comes in for the ride and manages to somehow get the horse beaten, and then everyone goes, oh, see, justice for Schumacher. Something's going to have to be able to go and step up, and I can understand why you look at Rosalian. I'm just not entirely certain that I trust him. The talk about Rosalian going into the Lock-in Stakes was, oh yeah, we can't wait. And then as soon as the race was done, it's like, well, he'll improve for that. Okay, he did, but he didn't improve enough. But maybe I'm misreading the form. I think the argument you're making about Docklands winning it makes sense. The form at Sardinian Warrior looks good. Saucy was disappointing in the Eclipse, but he wasn't given a great ride, and he probably didn't like the ground. And the last time Andre Fabre had a runner in the Eclipse Stakes was 20 years ago, and that horse also finished last, Diamond Green. So there's probably a little bit of context to be... And I don't think Andre Fabre actually wanted to run the horse. I'm pretty certain it was the owners who insisted on running him because they want to make him into a stallion. So it's not like that form has been dented by the fact that Sosi bombed out. It's not that insane. And to be honest with it, I think this is a race that you play one of two ways. Either you're getting stuck into Field of Gold, or he's such a short price, you're trying to find the most likable, the most obvious horse that you can take him on with. And the initial way I was looking at this was, somebody give us a fair match bet where Henri Matisse is a decent enough price to beat Rosalian. Because I'm pretty certain these 3-year-olds are just better than last year's 3-year-olds. And he has to get weight from them. But you do make a pretty compelling case. What about the draw? Does the draw help things? We obviously don't have the draw yet, but what would the draw tell us on the day about how it might sway things?
So this is a great opportunity to introduce, we haven't spoken about it yet on the Final Furlong podcast, but our newest flat match, the draw advantage that each horse will gain or not have historically from their source. So we put a whole load of historical race data, about 10 years worth of race data, into our models to try and look into the sort of the distance horses were beaten from each of the stalls. So this is very much looking at results data, not just strike rate, taking into account obviously the fact whether a horse won, how far it was beaten, and then using all of that information to determine how many lengths a horse would normally have as an advantage or disadvantage from certain stalls. So it's very much number of runners specific and stuff. So for the Sussex Stakes, we probably wouldn't expect many more runners than 8. I'm obviously hoping for 8 so that we get 3 places.
Oh, hopefully.
But I've just gone with 8 for this conversation state. But basically, the layout of Goodwood, as we all know, means that you go around quite a sharp bend, and so being wide is not an advantage at all. And this quantifies that actually half-length swing between being drawn on the inside and on the outside. So if you're drawn stall 1, then you've got about a 0.2 length advantage on the field, and if you're drawn 8, then you've got a quarter of a length disadvantage on the field. So, for this race, it could be that deciding factor. Just, if Resilient got drawn 1, Field of Gold 8, like it's the sort of thing that maybe could play a part in that bob at the end of the race. It's probably not going to play a massive impact when you're thinking about the sort of big handicaps, the Golden Mile. Like that swing is way bigger. Like we're looking at sort of a length and a half difference between the inside and the outside. So, if we get more than 8 runners, then it starts getting quite significant that you want to be drawn low. But, again, a lot of these metrics are designed to quantify what we know. So I think, if you went into a pub in, around the corner from Goodwood, everyone would obviously think that you want to be drawn low. But this is putting that actual number to quantify the fact that, it is quite a significant benefit around Goodwood to be drawn low.
How is that going to play out tactically, do you think? Because Henri Matisse needs to be held up to run to his best. From memory, that's exactly what they do with apologies, my cat has just jumped in the window and decided to start screaming and roaring, announcing his arrival. Just so I know he's here, Paige, and that means everything has to stop for him, of course. So Henri Matisse needs to be held up. Resilient needs to be held up. If it's a small field race, that's going to be interesting pace-wise. Field of Gold is very versatile tactically. They tend to hold them up, but they could go forward if they wanted to. I doubt they'll do that. That kind of brings me back to Carl Spackler. If he was to get a low draw, whoever's going to be on board might just go, okay, we'll go to the front and see if you can catch us. That could be intriguing. Essentially, that draw bias would suggest that if Field of Gold gets drawn low, then Buick is going to be loving life. If he's drawn high, that might give him a headache.
Yeah, especially if you've got, when you're looking at the pace angles, sort of Carl Spackler, lead artist, they are horses that didn't kick on in the Queen Anne as well. So if we ended up in a situation where the leading contenders are mostly sort of middle to rear, so as you say, Field of Gold is versatile, but at the same time, he does have a history of running a bit keen. So are they going to want to be brave enough to run downhill in front with everything else having a target on his back? Are we just going to see a repeat of the Queen Anne where they're going to crawl? And as you say, if you're in front down the inside, you're going to be in a way better position than if you've got a bit of daylight on the outside running downhill going steadily. It's going to be a really fascinating race, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Richard Hannon was saying on the Unibet video blog not so long ago that he doesn't want to go up on trip. If anything, he wants to come back. So he wants to come back in distance, and he'd be more likely to do that. And yet Charlie puts notable speech in the July Cup. That's not what he did. He's like, no. We are going to the Sussex Stakes. So he's very adamant that they want to stay at the mile, despite the fact that he thinks he has the speed to be able to drop back to 6. I guess City of York Stakes is probably going to be the hottest race of the season, but it looks at things, everybody seems to be going there with their horse to try 7 furlongs, either for the first time or for the first time in a while. That race might suit him really well. He's got a good turn of foot, and he finishes his races strongly for all that he got beaten at Ascot. I think your point about him being an Ascot specialist with good form makes sense with Docklands. Henri Matisse might be ideally suited to that race as well, by the way. I mean, Henri Matisse is a horse I like an awful lot. I just don't see any logical reason as to why he beats Field of Gold unless Field of Gold gets badly hampered, can't get out, gets stuck, which could happen, by the way. Could very easily happen. The more we look at this and the more you talk about it, the more I'm inclined to either just let Field of Gold run, and if he wins, well done, Gosdens, that's fantastic. But it is going to be his 5th run since April. And it's going to be on a track that I've seen so many odds-on favourites get beaten on before. I don't know if I just want to blindly go along with the idea, yeah, you are Kingman 2.0. I think I'd rather let him just prove it to me that he is, and then wax lyrical about him afterwards. But taking 9-4 on doesn't really appeal the more you talk.
Yeah. And for everyone tuning in now, hoping for that decisive, this wins the Sussex Stakes. Apologies now, we've probably just completely...
well, maybe what we should just do, Paige, is just go, history, Buick, history, lift him, lift certainty. No, that doesn't work, and tends to not bode well. Both Paige and I were sharing our battle scars of Constitution Hill's champion hurdle defeats, like that kind of stuff you need to remind yourself of, because that did not feel good. That did not feel good at all. Live coverage, by the way, of the Sussex Stakes on TalkSport 2. I'll be presenting it, so I really don't want to be getting stuck in throwing 9 on to win 4 and then afterwards going, oh, what an idiot. I think we both admire Field of Gold, but you've raised some very interesting questions. Just as a button, if Richard Hannon is talking about going back in distance with Rosalien being the most likely option if he was to do anything, not going up, the fact that John and Thady Gosden were initially talking about going up to 10 furlongs and then ended that very quickly, it's like, nope. No, Juddmonte. No. 1 mile. We want to stick to the mile with him. Is that something that actually worries you about him? Or does he just, to you, stride like an out-and-out miler, and so that makes sense, just keep him to the 8 furlongs?
Field of Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think he's versatile, to be honest. And he's possibly, again, not trying to spin it back around because we both clearly like Field of Gold. I think he's more versatile than Rosalien. Like, even though Rosalien and Field of Gold won the Irish Guineas in very similar fashions with an electric turn of foot, I think Field of Gold's more versatile. So I think the reason why they probably think that he could go up to a mile 2 is because actually, you look at the way he ran the Guineas and he was galloping very powerfully to the line. But then you see the electric turn of foot the next twice. He just looks a lot more versatile in run styles than a horse like Rosalien, who clearly, as we've already touched on, needs to have everything fall right for him to be able to use his speed at the right moment. And 8 furlongs is probably just that perfect sweet spot for him. And maybe over 7 furlongs, if you, again, had the opportunity to have the perfect pace where it's not too that he can't use his speed, but not so slow that you're going to have horses. It's a complete minefield, and I think, I think that weight difference is going to make a real difference this year. But I just hope that they're all running over the line at exactly the same point, and we can go, wow, the mile division is really exciting, which it will go one way or the other after next week, I think.
Well, if Field of Gold gets turned over, it's going to be very underwhelming. That's going to be shoulder slumps. Like, oh no. Because he looks so good. But again, the more you talk, yeah, he looked really good beating Henri Matisse. That's not a bad thing, by the way. Henri Matisse is a really talented racehorse. And they're not talking about any change in trip with him either. Plus, it seems as though they want to take him on again, which I find very interesting. They're not rerouting him to another race to go, no, well, I mean, if he gets drawn low and Field of Gold gets drawn high, I don't see Henri Matisse out of the first 3. There's no logical reason as to why he beats Field of Gold, but he won't be out of the first 3, particularly if he's drawn low. So maybe he's the each way bet to nothing in the race. Yeah, it's a really interesting race this year. You've slightly made me raise an eyebrow. My initial reaction to this was, yeah, Field of Gold wins. But obviously.
I think he does. Like, he wins, doesn't he? It's just, again, it's that big question. You see a big fat, odds on, like, why do you want to go down with him if he gets turned? It just makes it even more disappointing.
Yeah, you're going to feel real stupid if you've got your 9 on to win 4 and he's stuck in a pocket and can't get out. And then he's a fast finishing second. And of course the narrative is, oh, but he should have. Yeah, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And there's no bookmaker coming to you with a justice refund payment of, because sorry, he got a little bit unlucky in running there. Can somebody do a GIF of Kieran Schumark, preferably with a bit of a smirk on his face or some sarcastic smile, and told you, only to be deployed if Field of Gold gets beaten? Like, he was beaten in he won the Sweet Solara. He was beaten in a Prix-Jean Luc Lagardère. He's been beaten in a Guineas. He's not untouchable. He's not untouchable, but that's the thing that makes him really interesting. Okay, we both think he's the most likely winner. The alternative for you is firmly Rosalian.
I think so, yeah.
I think Henri Matisse will beat Rosalian. And if you were going to swing at something at a real big price, Carl Spackler shouldn't be 40-1. But if an ex-American, now Australian-trained racehorse wins the Sussex Stakes, there might be complete and utter war on the fields of Goodwood with the fields of gold. Okay, we'll go back a furlong for the Lennox Stakes. The betting is headed by Kinross, who's a bit of a legend. He was beaten on his seasonal comeback, but he almost certainly needed the run. He's 11-4. We've got John Quill. Oisin Murphy's already been jocked up on him. Interesting. He's got that Henri Matisse form, and we're going to see this beforehand. So he was second to him in the French 2000 Guineas. He beat Rashabar, who ran a massive race when narrowly collared by Royal Dubai very late on his first try over 10 furlongs. I don't know what happened at Royal Ascot. He probably hated going back to sprinting, but that was a bit of a disaster. The form of that race is working out pretty well, though. Arizona Blazed was a really good winner at the weekend, thankfully for the podcast. And this trip will suit him better. And then there's last year's runaway winner, Audience, with Lake Forest again trying 7 furlongs. This is his ideal trip. You got the Jersey Stakes winner and double champion who is confirmed for this race as well. And he should confirm that Jersey form with anybody who's going to rematch with him. What's the overall take for you and RaceiQ for the Lennox Stakes?
So at 7-2, I feel a bit more comfortable going. I think Kinross wins.
Okay. 4-9? No. This is the opposite way to how some people on social media behave. The shorter the price, the more bullish and confident they are. But the bigger the price, the more confident Paige is. I like it, Paige.
So, and I say this because I think Ross O'Ryan probably looked back on the race last year and gave himself a little bit of a, slap on the wrist for it. Like he just gave away the ground at the start of the race. Like you could see he was Audience and Art Power quickest out of the stalls. They were the quickest two horses to 20 miles an hour in the race. Kinross was 5th quickest. So, already slightly on the back foot. We know he's a hold-up horse. But Ross O'Ryan, properly dropped anchor because that's how he runs. But it's the fact that he proactively dropped anchor to then settle him in. They didn't go mad like they thought they would because obviously Audience last season was this tearaway. They must have thought they'd go faster, harder. But Kinross was already over a second behind Audience at the end of the first furlong. And that's just ground you can't proactively give away. It's all very well settling in just because that's the way the pace works out. But I think the way he finished in the end, he got the highest top speed of the race, 42.3 miles an hour in the second last furlong, but he just couldn't make up that ground. So I don't think he didn't win it because he wasn't good enough last season. I think he won it just because of the way everything panned out. And I just don't think Ross O'Ryan's going to make that same mistake again.
I'd be inclined to agree. Did you see enough from him on his seasonal debut to make you think that he retains all of his ability?
Yes, because I think, again, just his run style, they obviously were pressing the buttons as late as possible. Audience was in there. Audience was disappointing. I'm just going to put a line straight through Audience. I don't think he's the same horse that won the Lockins last year. He just looked flat at Haydock, unenthusiastic. I think he's probably a horse, like horses that run that fresh and keen. This is Audience, just to clarify. I think there's probably some sort of hole in him that he was obviously running away from at the start of last season, and his form's just completely gone off a cliff since. So for me, I just can't have him. But the fact that Kinross still beat him so decisively in the John O'Gaunt, I think that shows that Kinross was at least as good as he was, because as you say, he's an old horse, he'll come on for the run. But just to completely jump along a little bit more, I actually think that people are underestimating 10 Bob Tony as well, because I think that was actually a good win from him in that race too.
Well, name alone, people are going to be underestimating him. Like, he can't be any good. He's called 10 Bob Tony, but he's by Night of Thunder. He's got some pretty decent form to his name, particularly the second to Top Gear when he was only beaten half a length. He's a Night of Thunder trained by Ed Walker. He's only had the 11 starts. Like, he does seem to be just now rolling. It was just possibly just a little bit like, he was a big price for that race too on comeback. Like, the betting market was telling you Kinross has got no chance here. He was a double figure price. You never see Kinross at a double figure price. And he's a former winner of the race. Everything's in his favour to go and run a big race.
And he should have won it last year. Sorry, Rossa.
Yeah, sorry, Rossa. We're big fans of yours, but I agree. The only one that would interest me against him, I thought Noble Champion was great at Royal Ascot. I really did. Imagine how I felt presenting TalkSport 2's coverage, remembering that this fellow was in my tracker, and I looked at him the night before going, nah, I can't see it. I'll just leave that to one side. It's like, but knowing that there was going to be a big race in him at some point, that was a very, very impressive performance. But it was an odd race. And Seagull's 11 has bounced out with a nice performance since. He was second and not beaten far by Opera Bello, who's definitely a Group 1 horse. Although not headed to the Breeders' Cup, apparently, because Charlie Appleby's of the opinion if he takes him to America, he might never get him back. It might just be a bit too much for him. And that's a horse that's still learning. And that was at listed level as well, to be fair. But Noble Champion is an interesting one, and he's one of the 3-year-olds who's going to be getting the weight advantage, which then brings you back to Jonquil, because if I like Henri Matisse so much, then this is probably the race that will suit him better. You just need to forgive him a really disappointing effort at Royal Ascot.
Yeah, but Royal Ascot's, you can't, and it's 7 furlongs, not 6 furlongs. Like, they're just completely different races, aren't they?
Yeah. And you're at Goodwood on an undulating track. It's a different kettle of fish entirely. Is there any draw bias that we need to be aware of for this race?
So I haven't pulled it because we generate it as the entries come through. I sort of preempted I can certainly pull it out and share it. That is one thing that I will try and do for each day of Goodwood Festival, is try and share all of the draw advantage information on our RaceiQ Twitter feed as well. Tag on the screen here at race_IQ. So hopefully you'll be able to get an idea of that sort of advantage or disadvantage. But again, if you've got a good number of runners in this race, I would say yes, there will be an advantage to being drawn low again, because I think that, as we all know, is very much the sort of theme at. I think what's actually quite interesting is digging into the metrics as well and looking at, we don't have loads of years worth of data, but we do now have sort of enough of a sample size that we're starting to get a bit of an idea of sort of run styles in a race at certain tracks. And I pulled out some information about winners of races at Goodwood compared to winners of races at other tracks. And I'll sort of drip feed it in for the sprint races as we go through. But over 7 furlongs at Goodwood from all the races that we've seen, which is probably about 35 to 40, I think it is, only 11% of the winners have recorded the top speed in the race. So compared to 7 furlongs on the turf across all of the tracks in Britain and Ireland, you're looking at a 23% strike rate for horses that record the highest top speed winning the race. So I thought it was really interesting, and I'll leave it up to the viewer's interpretation, but it's that idea of not having that sharp electric turn of foot. You see it so often at Goodwood, don't you? Swing into, and if you're having to make up ground from the back, flying home, you can't always get there, can you?
Yeah.
So it's just timing the challenge right. And again, we're talking about Kinross last year. He timed his challenge wrong. He was the fastest horse in the race, and he didn't quite get there. And I just thought it was an interesting nugget. I don't know what it means for this race specifically, because it is quite an open race, and we're still learning a lot about the horses in it. But I just thought it was quite interesting that, for all tracks have a 23% strike rate for the quickest horse in the race winning the race. And then Goodwood, it's the 11% strike rate. You are probably looking at a horse which can, like Audience used to be able to, don't think he'll be able to do it anymore. jump, run, gallop, just gallop them into the ground. So it's just maybe worth bearing that in mind. I still think Kinross wins, but
yeah, he's the most likely winner, certainly for all you said. 5 of the last 10 winners were either favourite or joint favourite. 7 of the last 10 winners came from a low draw. And as Paige said, low draws in a high field, or at least in a big field, tend to be historically favoured at Goodwood. But we'll give you more info about that as we lead up to it. And obviously we need the draw to actually be revealed to us, first of all, before we can get fully stuck into that. But right now, Kinross at 11-4 generally would seem to be pretty fair. I tend to be leaning towards the younger generation again, probably just instinctively. And I need to decide whether or not... Man, only one 3-year-old in the last decade has won. I don't know if I can bring myself to back Noble Champion, having missed him at 28-1, and then seeing him gallop to victory, be like, damn, you fucking idiot. But John Quill is one I'm interested in. I was very interested in him for Royal Ascot as well. And as you said, there's reasons to be able to forgive that. Let's go back to day one. And the Goodwood Cup, Aidan O'Brien bidding for his 5th win in the race. 2 of the greatest stayers to ever race are the ones who won it for him before. The horse, if you're watching this on YouTube, over my shoulder, Yates, goated. And Kyprios, who won 2 of the last 3 runnings of this race. In his absence, Aidan O'Brien will rely on Illinois, who is the 6-4 on favourite. Intriguingly, Scandinavia is still in there. And he was real good. Real good. Last time out at Newmarket, when he absolutely bolted up and was very well backed to go and do so as well. Those cheek pieces woke him up. He'd be a fascinating runner getting that 3-year-old allowance if they were to run him in a Group 1 for the first time. Speaking of first time in a Group 1, first time in a group race for French Master, who was really impressive at Royal Ascot, but this is quite a step up from handicap company to a Group 1, and he's the second favourite. What is the RaceiQ data telling you about the Goodwood Cup? And is this trip more suitable for Illinois?
yeah, I think so. I think he didn't stay at Ascot, did he? Like, you know, William Buick, when we're looking at the sectionals through the race, William Buick was just clockwork, wasn't he? He just almost every single fraction through the race was just metronomic. And over 2.5 miles, he just galloped everything into the ground. And the fact that Illinois didn't stay, his third last furlong was 12 seconds, then he was 12.94, then he was 13.28. He didn't stay, but he stayed an awful lot better than everything else. And his win at Chester in the Ormond was impressive. And for Al Karim to go and back that up twice since, I just think, everyone really fancied him for, obviously the late money came from Trawlerman. But yeah, I'd feel more comfortable backing this odds-on favourite than Field of Gold. I think he's proved that he's a solid horse at this distance.
Yeah, so in the previews for Royal Ascot and in the preview I did for 10Bet, I was absolutely adamant that Illinois would win. And about 5 minutes before the race, I knew I had no chance. Yeah, because first of all, he was drifting. And secondly, it was what John Gosden said to my colleague, the Moose, on TalkSport 2. He'd just asked him about one of the horses and said to him, oh, by the way, you got Trawlerman coming up here. How do you taking on some younger stayers? What do you reckon, John? And without skipping a beat, Gosden goes, yeah, very interesting horses. They're all going to have to stay because we're going to go out. We're going to make all. And if you can come past us, well done. I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. Superior Stayer beat him. It's not necessarily that he didn't stay. It's that he couldn't stay against a superior stayer who was ridden to chef's kiss perfection by Buick on the day. You're back down to a more suitable distance. Also, it's his third run of the season. If you think about Aidan O'Brien's winners of the Gold Cup, with the exception of Yates, who the first time he won the race was first time out, if I remember correctly, but every other winner of the Gold Cup that Aidan O'Brien has had 2 runs. Illinois was not destined for the Gold Cup. Kyprios was. He was the super sub. They almost got away with it, except for the fact that John Gosden had Trawlerman back to peak perfection.
And it was a course record time.
It was phenomenal.
And Brown was quick, but it was a monster performance.
Yeah, phenomenal performance. This will suit Illinois a whole lot better, and it's his third start of the season, so he's eligible to improve. Second start, third start, after 2 prep races, if I could use my mouth words correctly. Deary me, what the hell is going on? I think he's going to take a whole lot of beating. The one thing I would say is you're not supposed to take a short price about a horse supposed to do something for the first time. And Illinois has to win a Group 1 for the first time. That's the only caveat I would tell you. But who's the most likely horse to capitalize and beat him? Like, he's very consistent. He's very, very tough. Los Angeles was given just an insane ride at Royal Ascot. I don't know what the hell they were doing there. But we've already talked about Saucy. Los Angeles is a Group 1 winner this season and a Group 1 winner at 2, 3 and 4. Jan Bruegel is joint favourite for the King George as we're recording this race and a Group 1 winner this season. And you've already outlaid how good Al Karim has been this season. The form is there. He wins.
Yeah.
Is there anything...
And it's Aidan O'Brien training him.
Is there... Say again?
And it's Aidan O'Brien training him. So,
It's Aidan O'Brien. It's Ryan Moore. Don't complicate your mind. This is real simple. Illinois wins. And he's not quite the dominant favourite that Field of Gold is. So it makes a little bit more sense to be taking the odds on about Illinois as things stand. Is there something about the draw over 2 miles at Goodwood that would give us pause for concern?
I don't think in a long distance race they've got enough time to sort themselves out. Even if there was a slight bias, I think I can't see there being enough runners for it to be significant, and they've got enough time to sort itself out. I think it will be very much pace related, but I think a muddling pace isn't going to affect Illinois' chances. It might just give a horse like Sweet William more of a chance and hinder a horse like Scandinavia, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a little bit of revenge there as well, though, Paige, because Sweet William was ridden in a certain way in the Gold Cup. Now, that's racing, folks. That's racing, folks. That's sometimes how it goes. But I think Ryan Moore will really enjoy blowing right by Rab Havlin. I think he'll take a lot of satisfaction just looking over his shoulder. He doesn't do the Christophe Soumillon thing of, come on. He doesn't do that. But I think he'll take a lot of satisfaction looking up at the big screen and seeing Illinois going past them. Scandinavia would be fascinating. I'd be shocked if they ran him. Really, really surprised. I think St. Ledger is now his aim. Although the more they talk about Lambourne, the King George is off the agenda. Maybe they want to put him there too. So we'll see. But I'd be really surprised if he turned up. Is there anybody else we should mention before we'll switch to the next race?
Only that John and Tady Gosden are very good at training horses for these long distance races, as we've already touched on. And French Master clearly had an awful lot in the tank. And I know that's reflected in the price. He completed the final furlong at Royal Ascot nearly half a second quicker than the runner-up. He was a really fresh horse. He was the only horse to hit his top speed in the penultimate furlong at Royal Ascot. He was as visually impressive. He was as impressive in the data as he looked. And I just think Wathnan are having an unbelievable time of the horses they're buying. They're clearly well advised. John and Tady Gosden are very good at training these sorts of horses. And I just think a nice little forecast between the 1-2 with those two, I think would be quite a nice way to play this race.
I think Sunway. I think he's the one that would interest me. He doesn't have a whole lot to find with Illinois from the run in the St. Ledger. David Manussier thought enough of him to run him in the King George last year, and then got very annoyed when, who was it? Because I've said a lot of dumb things in the past, but somebody said, I'm pretty sure it might have been in one of the big racing publications. I can't remember who it was, but somebody said something disparaging about his run in the King George, and Manussier lost it on social media. He's like, did you even watch Sorry, David. Did you even watch the race back? That race wasn't run to suit at all. He considered him good enough to run him in the Arc. Obviously, that didn't go to plan. He's a Group 1 winner as a 2-year-old. He's been second in an Irish Derby. The Los Angeles form reads well. The Jan Bruegel form reads well. And more importantly, he's back, because that run in the Hardwick Stakes was really, really good. And while Palladium was shockingly bad at Newmarket the next day, Alrifa was brilliant in the Michael John Kennedy Cup at the Curragh the other day. Like, his first attempt over a mile 6. They're going to go for the Melbourne Cup with him, and best of luck to them with him. Rebels Romance is going to have a huge chance in the King George. That's good form. So he's the one that would interest me, and he's a double figure price. But I don't...
Yeah, that's actually a very good shout. I think it's just because of connections as well. Like, I wouldn't have looked into the form of him because it sounds awful, but because he's trained by David Minutier, who we know is a brilliant trainer and sets them up so well these days, but we sort of forget about because you've always got the John and Tazy Gos. I think Palladium at Newmarket next time, to be honest. He's not a fast horse. Like, he really is, like, he's in the
slow.
data, a very slow horse.
Yeah.
And how do you get a slow horse beat? You go too fast or too slow, and he definitely went too slow at Newmarket. Like, obviously, Ryan Moore, brilliant jockey, but I think he didn't set the race up very well, so I just put a line through that. And as you say, I mean, Al Ripper's run at the weekend was just phenomenal.
That was class.
Win. Yeah.
Yeah, so that... plus Rebels Romance is one of the best horses in training. Like, the horse is just an absolute... He's what a hero. Oh, I so want him to win the King George. Like, to the point that it's becoming unprofessional. Like, you're supposed to be totally unbiased, and no. I'm just like, crush your enemies, Rebels Romance, show them all. Sunway really interests me, and that's probably the way I'd play it. As much as I like Illinois, and I'd love to see him win the race, but the double figure price with Sunway is probably the way I'm going to go, and he's unexposed as a stayer. The fillies, the Nassau Stakes. So this is going to be a very interesting race. We've got that form time back in again from Ombudsman. You and I were talking about that lengthily off air before we began this in the Eclipse. She is favourite for this race. She's going to be very, very interesting for either the Juddmonte International or the Yorkshire Oaks. Whichever York race they decide to go for, she'll have a major chance in because she just loves that track. And you could argue, well, no, you'd not argue, the Prince of Wales was a mess. So she's probably done very well to finish only beaten 4.5 lengths that day. Whether she should be 15-8 for this race, though, don't know. She was beaten it as a 3-year-old. Why does she win it as a 4-year-old? And she has to take on Whirl, who only succumbed to Minnie Hawk, who, all right, maybe not visually impressive in the Irish Oaks, but she won it. Kalpana is a proper horse, and she beat her, getting the weight allowance. Cinderella's Dream was back to form the last day. This is the race that they're going for, because this is what Charlie Appleby said straight after that race. Whether she can be as good away from Newmarket, I'm not so sure, and the Breeders' Cup is the big aim for her. Bedtime Story is another one that might rock up, but it's a question of which of the two Aidan goes for, and it looks like Whirl is the one who's going to go here, which means Bedtime Story goes Yorkshire Oaks instead. And then you've got the surprise winner of the Coronation Stakes, Serene, for an absolute gentleman and fantastic connections in Australia, is having a brilliant season. This is a fascinating running of the Nassau Stakes. I'm absolutely certain I know who's going to win it. What about you?
I think See the Fire wins. I think she got unlucky in this race last year. But again, it goes back to the 3-year-old weight allowance as well. We're talking about, Cinderella's Dream and See the Fire, they're 4-year-olds. They carry 9 pounds more. That is quite significant. And I was quite confident about See the Fire going into... I don't have his favourite on where I'm looking either. So I was hoping that I might at least pick one that wasn't favourite that I thought was going to win. Obviously, that's not how I...
You've picked a few, to be fair.
No, I do really like Well. She's very impressive. I just think that win in the Middleton Stakes of See the Fires was incredibly impressive. Yeah, she was quickening. Like, horses were getting tired, but her quickest furlong was in the penultimate furlong. When everything else was getting tired, she was quickening again. And that, she looks older, she looks stronger, and she, in the Nassau, she, Opera Singer had a classic Peach for a Ride from Ryan Moore, absolutely dictated from the front. See the Fire clocked 3... I've got to reread my notes here. See the Fire post the final fastest furlong of the race, 4 furlongs from home, which is a 10.71 second furlong. And then followed it up 3 furlongs from home with a 10.87 second furlong. And completed the final furlongs a second quicker than Opera Singer. closing all the way to the line. So she was like flying home last year. It's just Ryan Moore had dictated from the front. So I'm not saying that couldn't happen again, but See the Fire clearly has an electric turn of foot for the end of a race, which I think will be suited to Goodwood. Well is showing more speed than she has done. In the Pretty Polly, her top speed was the fastest she's recorded so far since she left from 7 furlongs. So that was the turn of foot that if she hadn't shown that turn of foot in the Pretty Polly, I probably would have been a little bit more cautious about Well, but she has now shown me what she was missing, if that makes sense, for a mile 2. Like she got outstayed in the Oaks, but yeah, I think I saw her in person, and she's just quite slight, and I don't know. I think she'll be a much better horse next season. That's just sort of my gut feeling with Well.
Okay. Who's the better filly for Andrew Balding, in your opinion? Kalpana or See the Fire?
Isn't this why flat racing's amazing?
Yeah.
Because in jumps racing, they all run against each other, so you can go, no, this horse is better. But we've spent this whole show just talking about how the form lines cross over.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Kalpana's obviously an incredibly talented horse. Can't take that away from her. It's a great question. I clearly know where you're going with that line of questioning.
Now, I would do the counter argument, which is Kalpana didn't run in the Prince of Wales Stakes and See the Fire did, and she was supplemented by her connections to run on it. However, that requires a bit of context. Kalpana didn't run in the Prince of Wales Stakes because of the ground, and they had initially decided to run her in the Hardwick Stakes because they thought, well, the ground might be a little bit better, and also it'll give her a better chance to handle that ground over the further trip. But the more the week went on, the more they went, nah, it's not going to work. And so they rerouted her to the Curragh instead. All of that is to say, I think See the Fire is a very, very nice horse, but I'm shocked that Whirl is not favourite for this. They both won at York. Now, this is not an exact science by any stretch of the imagination, and you know a whole lot more about this than I do, but they both won at York in 2 minutes 9. And Whirl is unexposed. She's the 3-year-old. She gets the weight allowance. We know what's going to happen. Moore's going to go to the front. He's going to set it up, and he's going to kick on when he wants to. And they won't go past her. She'll win.
I think you are casting plenty of doubt in my mind. I think what was so impressive about Well, as you say, is she could easily do what Opera Singer did last year. Like, she very much looks like in the Moose Dora, she completes the final furlong 0.3 seconds quicker than any other horse, because she really stays a mile 2, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She doesn't quite. I think she just got caught out by that in the Oaks. Like, clearly that wasn't her race. And so I could see, even if See the Fire was, I still think she might be the best horse. And I think if next year they're running off level weights, I don't know. But it is quite possible that the same thing could happen this year as what happened last year with Opera Singer and See the Fire. But I just feel like See the Fire was the better horse last year in this race. Granted, she's carrying more weight, but I think she was unlucky last year. I think she should have won the race last year, but she was given to. But yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of. Yeah.
This is something I should have looked up beforehand, and if I was professional, I would have. But oh well. I wonder what the IHRB handicap rating is for Whirl. Please hold, caller. Your call is very important to us at Final Furlong Podcast Towers. It's over, Paige. It is over. Whirl's official Irish handicap rating is 117. See the Fire is 119 and gets £9.
Yeah.
2-1 Whirl. Oh my goodness. That's nap material. Sea the Fire is a very, very talented horse, but I don't see how she gives her £9.
What else do you think Aidan O'Brien will run in this race?
Nothing. I suspect he'll just go with her.
Mm.
I think Garden of Eden is too exciting, and they've got their win with her, and they probably want to keep her to a mile 4 anyway. Maybe you throw in Exactly because she's been a little bit disappointing, perhaps. Bedtime Story, I think, is too good, so you're going to take her to the Yorkshire Oaks, I would imagine. January travels very, very powerfully and doesn't find a whole lot towards the end of the races. So you're probably better off keeping her to a mile and just trying to find something that's going to suit her, which is now looking like the Matron Stakes, because it sounds like we might not see Lake Victoria again, and if we do, it'll be next year. And hopefully we do, because that's a special talent. Garden of Eden maybe to the Yorkshire Oaks as well, back over a mile 4. So World goes for this race, Mini Hawk goes for the Prix Vermeil, Bedtime Story goes for the Yorkshire Oaks, January goes Matron. That's what I would guess. Would you put something else in?
No, I mean, I had some really interesting days from Cinderella's Dreams win at Newmarket against Crimson Advocate. But I don't think it's relevant here because I just don't think she's good enough. You know, I think she showed that at Ascot, that just generally, you know, you're looking at the horses she's beaten as well, and we know that all the horses that she's beaten have not been, you know, they're not world beaters. They're all the sort of disappointing ones like the Amalkas and stuff. But I think what was interesting about the pair of the Ascot race and the Newmarket race with Crimson Advocate and Cinderella's Dream was that Cinderella's Dream got sucked into getting competitive too far out. Like, they went quite steadily in that race, and she got sucked into quickening up into the home straight and then didn't stay. Whereas it looks visually, this is where the sectionals become quite interesting sometimes, because if you go and look at the sectional timing, available on Racing TV website if you want to go and have a look at it.
Nice plug.
Nice plug. Crimson Advocate looked like she was quickening in the final furlong, but she was outstaying Cinderella's Dream. Cinderella's Dream was actually the quickest horse in that race. So she clocked the fastest top speed, but she got tired because she clocked it 2 furlongs from home. Whereas when you went to Newmarket, they went a far more even. So they went a bit faster through the race. They went more even. So Crimson Advocate actually clocked the top speed, the highest top speed of the race. But because it was a far more evenly run race, she couldn't maintain that speed. So I think basically Cinderella's Dream was suited to that Newmarket. Like you say, she's suited to Newmarket. She shoots just bowling along. She's got a bit of speed about her, but not a sharp turn of foot, if that makes sense.
I think the data from the last 2 seasons would tell you that Charlie Appleby is absolutely brilliant at Newmarket, an absolute genius. And outside of that, unless it's Rebel's Romance, no. I don't understand why that is. Because, I mean, if you were saying, well, William Mullins is brilliant at Leopardstown, but take him outside of there, it doesn't make any sense. But you go to Newmarket and Appleby just crushes everybody. Buick rides that track brilliantly. There's probably nobody who rides Newmarket, bar Ryan Moore, maybe. I'm not sure anybody rides Newmarket as well as Buick does. And Charlie's horses just really seem to thrive there, but you take them away from Newmarket. Like, what do we keep seeing? We keep seeing him winning the 2,000 guineas at the start of the season and then winning the Group 1s at the end of the season. And in between, oh yeah, that Newmarket July meeting, yeah, he wins that too. But not at Royal Ascot, not at Glorious Goodwood for the last couple of seasons. Don't know what to tell you about that.
No, and I can't wait till we've got more data. Like, at the moment, obviously, we've only got, we'll have, by the end of this season, we'll have 3 seasons worth of data. But isn't it going to be fascinating when we can have a look at, like I was saying about the Rosalian and Field Gold matchup, like why their run styles are so different, and then matching that up with trainers as well, and going, okay, which trainers train horses in a certain way, like Charlie Appleby saying, obviously we know that Aidan O'Brien metronomically trains his horses at home to match up to the race they're about to run in. So you train horses in a certain style to get them to run in a certain way. So it would be fascinating when the data is deep enough and rich enough that we can start doing what Aidan O'Brien's doing at home, but for, he's got hundreds of horses, and years worth of data, so he can do that. But once we start getting that track information, home information, that maybe it's a North Star sort of, ex-jockey want from me, but I just think it would be fascinating to see, whether there is a start, Charlie Appleby trains in a certain way that means that the horses run particularly well at Newmarket, and why it wouldn't translate to other tracks.
Well, if I was to guess, I would say Aidan O'Brien trains based on the importance of the meeting. So for whatever reason, the Guineas isn't important to them anymore. And maybe it's because Aidan has the record as the winning most trainer in the history of the 2000 Guineas, and so you don't need to do that. But it might also be the Derby is very valuable to them, and they feel like they need to really promote that and support it as best they can because others are not. And they want to protect the history of that race as much as possible. And that's a stallion-making race in their eyes. Royal Ascot is crucial because the eyes of the world are on Royal Ascot. So it's not just about... Coolmore is an international breeding operation. It's not just Ireland and the UK. They've got a farm in France. They've got a farm in Australia. They've got a farm in America. And they're trying to get as much attention and as much eyeballs on those horses. So everything is about Royal Ascot to them. And they're all stallion-making races. Irish Champions Weekend is huge for them. The Irish Derby is huge for them. The Arc means a lot to them. But Aidan tends to win that once every decade. And then the Breeders' Cup. So he's trying to get each specific horse that is being targeted at each specific division to peak for those specific races, and they're building up to incline as opposed to decline at the end of the season. He doesn't want a horse going to the Breeders' Cup over the top. He wants them to be ready to run the race of their life, Auguste Rodin style. Whereas I think Charlie Appleby very much wants to win both the 2000 and the 1000 Guineas, the July meeting, and then it's about the Breeders' Cup. And I think he's almost working backwards from the Breeders' Cup once you get to this time of year. And the way he talked about Cinderella's Dream, Opera Bella not going there, specifically for the reason of taking him there as a 4-year-old, it seems to me like that's what he's thinking. Now, I'd be very interested to know if the data reflects that.
Yeah, and not to be boring ex-jumps jockey, but it's very much that difference between Nicky Henson and Paul Nicholls, isn't it? That same sort of style of training, but sort of Paul Nicholls likes to get winners in early, doesn't he? Go and win the race, and then he thinks about Cheltenham. Whereas Nicky Henson's always thinking about Cheltenham, isn't he? But
Paul wants the big Saturday handicaps, and then if you can win at Cheltenham, great. Whereas Nicky is only thinking about Cheltenham.
Yeah, but then even thinking back on, again, this is all anecdotal. I don't know how the data is going to stack up over the years, but you were talking about tracks there on the way through the season. So you were talking about the Epsoms, the Royal Ascots, the Goodwood. Did you mention Goodwood? I can't remember what you said. So you had the Goodwood. To me, when I'm anecdotally thinking about those tracks and what I've seen in some of the horses, again, go back to this Field of Gold Rosalien not succeeding in the Guineas because they have a turn of foot that is at Ascot. When you think about a Derby winners obviously have the impression that they're slow horses, but Auguste Rodin quickened up to post a sub 11-second furlong when he went to win the Derby. Yes, they run downhill, or they run uphill, then they run downhill, but you have to be able to quicken in a Derby. You have to be able to quicken at tracks like Ascot. And, yes, Aidan O'Brien will be training them to do that stepping stone and be fresh and meet each of them still well. But how is he training them at home, which means that they actually, yes, okay, again, we know that Aidan O'Brien's got to practice Court with the Epsom.
There's an Epsom track at Ballydoyle. There's an actual Epsom track.
Yeah, there's an Epsom track. But I'd be fascinated to know, and I might be completely barking up the wrong tree, but I'd be fascinated to know whether even just the way that people gallop their horses at home makes them more adaptable to tracks like Chester, Epsom, training styles. I don't know. It just that's a side of it that, again, I'd love to think that we could start unlocking some of those narratives about what horses love Newmarket so much. You know, notable. Yeah, there's some really like insight. I mean, again, that idea that Cinderella's Dream could quicken up, but then couldn't maintain it at Ascot, whereas she can go faster at Newmarket and maintain it and just gallop them into the ground. You know, what training at home creates the horses that run like that on the track?
Well, is it as simple as... So Vincent O'Brien... I need to reread the Vincent O'Brien biography, but off the top of my head, there's an Epsom gallop, there's a Chester gallop, and there's another one at Ballydoyle. I think the one might... I don't think it's Newmarket. There's another one that's maybe more conventional. So essentially, Aidan's horses, by the time they're getting to Chester and by the time they're getting to Epsom, they're heavily drilled. And that Chester track can be very beneficial because it's the tight turning tracks. So that's beneficial for America. So by the time he's taking his horses to the Breeders' Cup, they've already been round the Ballydoyle gallops several times, that Chester one. So they know what it's like to go around the sharp bends, the sharp turns, and they know when to quicken and how to quicken up. And their work riders, whether it's Ryan or Rachel or whoever, they will all have been able, Wayne obviously, they will have been able to educate them about this is how you do this and this is how you're going to perform on the day. So they're not taken off kilter. I would imagine for Charlie, it's pretty similar. If you're going up and down the Newmarket gallops all of the time, every single day, that's basically the same thing as going through the Newmarket track. And so they're not as surprised by the dip. And also, Buick knows that like the back of his hand. So they've got the best jockeys. Godolphin have got Buick, who they know they can rely on. Aidan's got Ryan Moore and Wayne Lorden. He knows he can rely on them. If for some reason they're not available, Oisin Murphy, Christoph Soumillon, they're putting their hands up. The amount of time Soumillon comes in for a ride, jockey is crucial. So you've got the best trainers who have the best ways to prepare their horses, with a team of people all around them that are the best in their field, veterinary teams that are the best at what they do, and you've got the best jockeys. Can't compete with that. You can try. Maybe the odd day you'll give them a bloody nose, but more often than not, no, they'll win.
And wouldn't it be fascinating though? And again, this is like a complete rabbit hole, which I normally end up sort of like tormenting myself with. It'd be fascinating to understand, like, rather than just completely replicating what they're doing, because not, you know, people can't, understanding why that is working or what the horses are doing. Obviously, you're not going to be able to see the data from Aidan O'Brien's, but you could see it from other trainers and work out, like, right, if the horses are doing this, this, and this, then that's actually similar to this track, or this is why that horse is performing well at that track. And, you know, just, I think that's, we all know why Willie Mullins' facilities are just brilliant, because Willie Mullins trains on them and the horses run phenomenally well and he's got an amazing team. But can you replicate that somehow, because you can understand what his horses are doing on the track? I don't know. It's a complete rabbit hole, which is not going to have any answers for, you know, years until we have enough data like those. You know, Aidan O'Brien's been tracking his horses for years, so he has a full grasp on it. But I don't know. It's just it's an interesting one, and this whole track, I'm like, especially from having ridden the horses, which I know certain trainers just had horses that loved certain tracks.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just because of the fact that they know how to set a horse up for that race. Like, I'm sure a part of it stems back from the fact that they train their horses in a certain way, which then ends up suiting certain tracks, which we know is why Aidan O'Brien has all the, you know, tracks that at his to be able to train the horses on and stuff. But I don't know, I'd love there to be something in the data that could explain what a horse has to do at home to then like a track. You know, if you can't train up Newmarket every day, how can you train a horse at home to like Newmarket without having to build Newmarket at home? If that makes sense.
Yeah, how is it that the Irish trainers have been able to win guineas if they're not able to access the Newmarket gallops every single day? Like, why is it that the Curragh gallop would be completely different to Newmarket, but there's an endless list of Irish trainers who've been able to get their horses ready? And if somebody like Jim Bulger is able to produce a horse like Poetic Flare to win a Guineas, why has he not been able to produce a horse like Poetic Flare since? And even though that wasn't that long ago, it was 2021. That feels long ago, by the way. if he's able to do that then, and that wasn't long after Dawn Approach and the first one, New Approach, why is there nothing else emerging from that yard to be able to go and do that? And how much of it then is to do with the quality of the stock you get, the type of progeny you're getting from a certain sire? Like, how much of it is Jim Bolger saw the potential of Galileo before most other people did, and he just went all in on the Galileo stock, and that paid dividends. He's the one who bred Soldier of Fortune. He obviously had Teofilio. He obviously had New Approach. That all worked out brilliantly. He's trained those horses to go on to win Group 1s. But then after that, he decided to breed from those sons, and that didn't quite work out in the way he wanted it to. And then Poetic Flare is produced, but Poetic Flare is sold to Japan, which means you can't access him. So even if he becomes a brilliant sire, you're not going to get his progeny. So it's not necessarily the yard is the problem. It's the stock you're getting in the yard that you then can't produce it. And then how much of it is to do with the facilities of the horses? Like, if you're looking at... Laura King did a brilliant video with Sir Mark Prescott last week. It was gold. I'd highly recommend you watch that on the World Horse Racing channel on YouTube. But if you look at his... Like, those buildings are older than America. Like, they are old stables that those horses are in. And you look at the more modern stables that are like aircraft hangars. They're big and airy and breezy, and all of the horses are essentially connected together, and it's like that aircraft hangar type. They can all breathe the same air, as opposed to those close confined stables that Paul Nicholls has, the old style ones. How much of that helps that you've got that more modern stable? Is that helpful? How much is the deep sand gallops that the Irish trainers use? How beneficial is that to getting horses hard fit and then keeping them fit throughout the season, as opposed to the wood chip gallops that just can't get that level of fitness into a horse? If the deep sand gallop works so much, why are British trainers not investing in those and continuing with the wood chip gallops? Is that just a coincidence that that's working right now? All of those questions. See, this is why horse racing is so much more fun than Formula One. If you've got the best car and the best driver for the track, you're probably going to win. But you could have the best trainer, the best jockey. Doesn't matter. The horse might even be Field of Gold, towers over that opposition. What if he doesn't turn up? What if he runs the same race he ran in the Prix Jean-Luc Lagardère? You don't know. That's what's so compelling about this sport.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sorry, viewers, if we've just totally bored you with stuff where you're like, but Aidan O'Brien just knows what he's doing, so of course he's going to be the best. Like, I do, just as a disclaimer, like, I do appreciate that some trainers just have a really good team and you can't solve everything on data. Like, I'm not, I really don't want to turn into that boring data person. I may well do, because, you know, I find it really interesting, but I appreciate a lot of the data just tells you what you do already know, but then it's always just finding those nuggets to make your analysis objective. And it's normally very much, and this spins all the way back round to, you know, when you're looking at the data itself, it's like, I could do my best to try and tell you that, I don't know, I think I pulled out more race course stats. It's much more important at Goodwood to break fast than it is across other tracks. I think it's like 38% strike rate. What did I get? Yeah,
so if you're missing the kick at Goodwood, you're screwed.
It impacts you more, and everyone will go like, yeah, of course, because you run downhill. Like, you again, it goes back to that idea of it's so much harder at Goodwood to make up that ground, isn't it? So I think at Goodwood, over 5 furlongs, 38% of winners were the horses that broke the quickest, so had the quickest 0 to 20 miles an hour, compared to 22% across all tracks. So again, we're looking at a fairly small sample size, but a lot of people go, oh, you know, what does that tell me? You know, how does that help me? Well, if you've got a horse that consistently breaks so slowly, it has got less chance at Goodwood than other tracks. But, you know, it still has a chance of winning. Just because a horse gets drawn 15 in the Golden Mile doesn't mean that it can't win. But all of this data is so brilliant to at least help you understand, okay, did that horse have an excuse last time out, like Kinross? We can see that Ross Orion took a pull, but being able to quantify the fact that he basically was 6 lengths behind audience after a furlong in a 7 furlong race where you can't win, it's not as easy to win from the back. All of those sorts of things that, I find fascinating, that it just gives you so much more of a deeper, objective view on a horse race. And I'm just, loving that side of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's also, just rattling around in my head, is somebody, I can almost see somebody commenting on YouTube right now going, but of course Aidan O'Brien trains all those winners. He's got the best facilities and the best horses. Aidan O'Brien set the record for the number of winners in a national hunt season when he trained at Owning Hill. And it's not that Owning Hill is a bad facility. It's that he was doing this long before Coolmore appointed him as their number 1 trainer. Guy's just a genius. Naturally gifted, naturally brilliant. Pretty certain he's able to talk to those horses. Pretty certain he can. And it's fascinating that Aidan O'Brien has the ability to be able to do this, and very few trainers do. But his horses that compete at Royal Ascot, the horses that we're going to see in the King George this weekend, the horses that we're going to see at Glorious Goodwood, they will wake up at Ballydoyle. They will then stable at Goodwood for a couple of hours, race on the track, and go to bed at Ballydoyle. That's not something that other trainers are capable of doing. But that finely oiled machine. Do you remember when there was a real risk that Highland Reel wasn't going to run in the Coronation Stakes because the plane got delayed due to bad weather?
Yes.
And then there was a freak out about how, he can't possibly win because he's only just arrived on track. I know he won. Like, that's what they do. And there was a couple of years at the Breeders' Cup where Aidan O'Brien's results dropped. And he switched it. And the switch that he made, and thankfully I copped this on very early. I was talking to somebody in America and they told me, and then I asked him about it in an interview. He had sent his horses out a week beforehand. So he would send them to the Breeders' Cup, let's say 3 days beforehand. And then he realized this isn't working. So he extended it like 7 days beforehand or whatever. Maybe it's 5. But that small little change suddenly resulted in more wins at the Breeders' Cup. When he targets Dubai, more wins there. So when they go extreme distances, long distance journeys, he'll send them out ahead of time to let them be acclimatized, get ready, compete, run, win. But when it's Britain, unless, I think the Derby that was stupidly switched for the FA Cup, that one, that year, was it Auguste Rodin?
Or the year after?
It wasn't City of Troy, it was Auguste Rodin. He went over on the Thursday with the horse who was going to compete in the Oaks. That's the only time he's done it. And that was just because they weren't going to have a Highland Reel situation of where we're arriving late on track. That's it. Everything is sent over on the morning and then back that night, including Aidan. Aidan doesn't stay at Royal Ascot. He doesn't stay at Glorious Goodwood. He wakes up at Ballydoyle, goes to bed at Ballydoyle. What a life, Paige.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's just, their operations are just unreal, aren't they?
I'd like to do a full podcast just like tracking a trainer for the day. Tracking someone like Gerlines. How do you do this? What is this like? How do you make this work? Because I think it's a fascinating life. That would have been a really good documentary series. It's pity the primetime documentary series didn't exactly do that. But hey, maybe the next one will. Is there any other race that we should talk about before we wrap up?
Well, we could talk about the King George if you want. Speaking about the 0 to 20s, because I don't think Asphora is herself this year. I don't think she'll turn up. I actually think Big Mojo ran a blinder in the July Cup and has a massive chance in this race.
Hold on a second. How is he 10 to 1?
I know. I know. I mean, maybe he doesn't go. I mean, maybe it's because they're going to skip that and go straight to York. But I'm not really sure why they would.
He won at the meeting a year ago. They'd be insane to skip this race. This is almost certainly his trip.
Yeah.
Plus, he's battle hardened enough that he could take this in and then go to York.
Yeah. And he I mean, that run in the July Cup was massive.
Huge.
He was going back to the 0 to 20 stats. His 0 to 20 of 2.08 seconds was the quickest of the whole July Cup meeting. He hit like 45 miles an hour when he won at this meeting last year as a 2-year-old. yeah, so I just can't. I know that mares are funny and you never know when you're going to catch them right or not, but I can't really understand why Aspora is favourite after her flop at Ascot. Like that was a way lesser race than when she won the race last year. I think the win time was a second slower this year compared to last year, and she's just her form since Goodwood last year, York, last year, just isn't the same. But she's 7 years old. I don't know. I just think Big Mojo is a massive price.
She didn't have the ideal preparation for Royal Ascot because they wanted to bring her over early. There was some logistical issue, and that meant that they couldn't get the prepper into her. And so perhaps the assumption from the bookmaking fraternity is, oh, she doesn't have the penalty this year, and if she just runs the same race that she ran a year ago, she'll win. But even if she was to run the same race she ran a year ago, is that form quite good enough? And why would anybody want to take 2-1 about a sprinter? They're all rubbish. They're rubbish. They keep beating one another. So I want to go with something that's a little bit different, and that means I'm going for something from the younger generation. I'm really interested in Richard Hughes' horse, Saida Darian. Let's just go with that pronunciation. Maybe if I just say it quickly, I'll get away with it. Saida Darian. She'd be somewhat interesting. She overcame a pace bias. She came from off the track when the pace was holding up at York, from off the pace when the pace had been holding up at York to go and win, and she was well back to do so. And again, that Commonwealth Cup form was working out quite well. It looked awful at the time, but it turns out, it was a good race. I'd be interested in her. I'm just not sure that. I don't think 5 furlongs at Goodwood is going to be ideal for her. It will be ideal for Big Mojo, but there is a horse in this race that it will be absolutely perfect for. A fast 5 furlongs at Goodwood on hopefully fast ground is absolutely perfect for Knight Rider. You haven't called the men in white coats yet, so that's a good sign.
No. I mean, look. I mean, he just they went so fast, didn't they, in the July Cup? And so, as you say, if I'm saying Big Mojo, then yeah, I mean, that is a really interesting shout. Really interesting shout.
This is what he needs, I would say. Like they tried him over the 5 at Royal Ascot. He gets beaten 5.5 lengths. Sephora was 2 lengths behind that day, so he doesn't have an enormous amount to find with her. I know 3 lengths in sprint division is still enough, but I thought he was disappointing that day at Ascot, really disappointing, and especially seeing as Watnan had gone out to the trouble of buying him. The July Cup, as you just said, he's done too much on the front end, but he's only got one way of going. This will suit him. If he breaks quickly, which he should, he'll go to the lead. He will try and burn them off, because that's the only thing he can do, and he's running over a distance that will suit him. I'd take the 16s about him. Knight Rider, I'd take a chance that Watnan know what they're doing, and they bought him for a very specific reason, which is they think he's a Group 1 sprinter. And he can prove that in a Group 2.
And to be fair, when he ran in the Clipper Stakes, he did look like he was about to start battling back and then just got tired in the final furlong. But yeah, as you say, like, he's just, his style of running hasn't suited the races rather than he hasn't been in form.
Oisin Murphy said to Carl Burke, if you drop this horse back to 5 furlongs, they won't see which way he's gone. Hasn't quite worked out. But to be fair, he's only had one go at it. That was at Ascot. And then they tried him over 6, which may just have been to keep him ticking over. Give it a go. I would be sick if I'm on the radio calling Knight Rider as the winner of the King George and not having had a bet on him. I'd feel like a right dum-dum. And in a very open division, that's who I'll side with. Is there anybody else that we should mention from that race that you think is... I mean, dearie me, what a division.
No, I mean, I think it's even less exciting than last year, isn't it? It's really cut up. I mean, it's quite mad to think last year we were talking about living the dream, believing, Aspora, Big Evs. I mean, they're proper, like, I know that they stuck around for a while and, you know, they're still not, you know, I don't know. As you say, it's a very, very average. average division this year.
I mean,
And so Glorious for is just the best horse by default, but I just can't. She's been I can't have her.
no. I was almost about to start talking my way into Manakin. Oh, it's his third run off a layoff. He might improve. He's got RPRs that would suggest he can run. I'm talking about 150 to 1 shot. That's how bad this division is. It's awful. It's just awful. And it's so interesting that there's such an emphasis on precocious speed at the sales and precocious speed for breeding. This is what you're ending up with. Somebody at the very high level needs to have a real think about this really, really fast, because the whole not focusing on the middle distance division, it's all right now. Now we're still producing horses of some substance, but I would say Lambourne is probably a mile 6 horse that's good enough to win over a mile 4 because there's nothing that can really touch him. Delacroix has probably just got that class because he's bred for it. I don't know, there's not a whole lot to be excited about in the middle distance division right now. There's some really good races, but it's not like there's massive stars there. Field of Gold towers over everything. He wasn't a dominant 2-year-old by any stretch of the imagination. It's an interesting division right now. It's fascinating, but
yeah, I was going to say it's interesting that you've been tipping up all the 3-year-olds in all the races. Either it's something that's been going on for a couple of years, or or we might need to go and revisit the show.
Yeah, possibly need to revisit things. But I just suspect that wait for age allowance is still going to be a massive impact. I don't think so. Either you're 100% right about Rosalien, or I'm right that division's not very good and that they won't be able to give the weight. Yeah. We shall see. Okay, which is the horse that you're most looking forward to seeing in action next week?
Most looking forward to seeing in action, I'm going to go for Kinross, just because I think it's really nice to have old horses coming back year after year, and I think he should have had his third Lennox last season. We've covered off a few reasons why he didn't, and I think that it would just be, I love those narratives. Again, probably being a boring old jumps jockey, but I love seeing horses coming back and performing at the same level year after year, and I'd love him. I think he deserves that third Lennox.
It'd be great to see him win it, and he's a 7-2 shot to do so. I've just been reminded that I should have asked you a question from earlier on, so thanks for the reminder. The data about the fillies, you were talking about Cinderella's Dream versus Crimson Advocate. So there's a line from John and Thady Gosden where William Buick said to them after the King Charles III Stakes a year ago, when she was beaten over 5 furlongs and then wins over a mile a year later, she's an American filly. She's looking for the bend, John. She needs the bend. And in the lead up to her run in the Falmouth Stakes, the Watnan racing team kept saying, yeah, but we don't know how she's going to cope with the straight mile. She needs a bend. Is there anything in the RaceiQ data that would back that up? That this is a filly who can only be really seen to her best effect around a bend? Because if that's true, then 14-1 for this race, when she goes back around a bend in the Nassau Stakes, would be intriguing.
This Crimson Advocate.
Yeah.
Let me have a...
And I'm sure people will be saying, but hold on a second, she won the Queen Mary over 5 furlongs. Yeah, she did on a straight track, but she had won round a bend before that in America, and her wins since have all come round a bend. And John was very keen to point out that Thady was the one who'd done all the work with her to get her to stretch out to a mile. And if you look at her prep races, they all came round a bend. She went to Kempton, she went to Goodwood. She's now back to Goodwood and Group 1 company, but crucially going around a bend again.
So I can show you, I'll show you the sort of different, again, going back to the sort of different, these are the 2 different races. So excuse the sniffing tool. I don't know where the file is, but can you see that okay?
Yep.
I can always send it to you again. So the top race is the Duke of Cambridge Stakes, and you can see that they really quicken up. And obviously, as you'd expect, they go up the hill and then they quicken up. And before this, in the race, they were going steadier than pass. So the grey line is the pass sectionals, and the sectionals of Cinderella's Dream, because Crimson Africa in blue and pink. Oh, I realised I got myself in a complete muddle because I was reading it the wrong way around earlier. I got the honestly, we were talking about being in a muddle and brain fog. So if you've got to this point in the podcast after an hour and 30 minutes, then scrap what I said earlier. Falmouth Stakes, they went steadier, and Cinderella's Dream built it up all the way through the race. Whereas in the Duke of Cambridge Stakes, they went harder, and then they quickened up as you'd expect at Ascot, and then Crimson Advocate stayed at the end of the race, if that makes sense. So effectively, where you look at those pass sectionals, you can see that naturally on a round course like Ascot, you're more likely to have that sharp as you come up to the line, but you're probably going to be going steadier through the best part of the race in general. Whereas on a straight track like Newmarket, you're going to go a long, hard gallop. You know, again, going back to that sort of narrative that I've spun through most of the show of some horses just like to inject pace and some horses stay, and some horses do that in different ways. And I'm probably going to sound like a complete idiot now because I've got my narrative completely muddled up. Hopefully these sectional diagrams kind of show the way that on that round track you have that opportunity to kick off a bend and then maintain it, which is what Crimson Advocate did at Ascot. But when you're building it from further out and you can't get that breather in round a bend to then kick off from the bend, then that's when it catches a horse like Crimson Advocate out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So she'd have a better chance at Goodwood.
I think so, especially over mile 2, because she clearly outstayed to Cinderella's Dream. Like, each of them outstayed for each other for different reasons. You know, like Notable Speech outstayed Rosalien.
Yeah.
Market, but actually, when you've got a bend to give a horse a breather, fill its lungs, and then kick off the bend, that's very different. And clearly, you can see from the sectionals that Crimson Advocate completely outstayed rather than quickened more than Cinderella's Dream in the Duke of Cambridge Stakes.
It's so interesting, Paige, because the instinct would have been to say, oh no, she's just done her for a turn of foot at the end of the race at Royal Ascot. But that's not what happened.
Not at all.
And that's really, really interesting. It also bodes well for her ability to be able to stay 10 furlongs, assuming the runner in this race. But I think they will, because they'll probably want to go back around the bend. I'm seeing 14s about Crimson Advocate. By the way, I'm still of the opinion that Worrell wins this race. I think Ryan Moore's just going to go, thanks very much. There's 20s about Crimson Advocate. So she's the one who would interest me from a forecast perspective, shall we say. Or if you're trying to get some scumbag each way bet on now, between now and race day, 20s Crimson Advocate would be very intriguing. Okay, thank you for that. Also give me a completely different perspective on it. Any handicappers to watch out for?
I think it's a bit too far out. Having only got the entries through as well for day one, I'm not even going to try dipping my toe in yet.
Yeah, it's. I was trying to work out the handicap for the big handicaps at the King George meeting. Never mind Glorious Goodwood. So that's a fun one to get stuck into over the next while. Plus, Golden Mile. Don't forget, if you're drawn higher than 10, you may as well just stay home, unless you're trained by Jack Shannon, in which case, fair play. And if you're drawn 1 to 5, game on. All right, Paige, where can Final Furlong podcast listeners and viewers get more access to RaceiQ data?
So all of our RaceiQ metrics are available on the Racing TV website in the results section. Hopefully plenty of explainers and stuff to get you familiar with them, but we're also on X, so at race_IQ. I'll be tweeting out content all through the week. I do try and get back to people if there's questions that they have. So, you know, just get in touch, have a look, see what you think. And say it's all our own interpretation at this as objective as possible, but it's hard, especially when we all get so attached to the old boys like Ross, bless him.
It's also fun when a horse does something for the first time that they haven't been able to do. It was towards the end of last year on TalkSport. I'd gone through all the profiles of the horses, and there was one who'd had like 15 starts, never even placed on an undulating track. I'm like, that's fine. This guy's got absolutely no chance. Suddenly there's a big gamble on him, and he wins by half the track. And I'm like, it's just like, how? Racing. Just complicate your mind, but also don't complicate your mind, because it can just drive you bananas sometimes. Paige, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. Thank you very, very much for joining us again. I would happily sit here and just debate training methods and what's going on with the breeding industry, and how is it some trainers are able to get moderate stock and turn them into stars, and some trainers get superb stock and they do all right. There'd be a whole list of endless topics to be able to delve into there with you, but I really enjoyed that.
No, thank you. Hopefully we've got some. I just can't wait to see it. This whole showdown all week of the 3-year-olds versus the older horses is just going to be, so much fun.
Oh yeah, you got to come back tomorrow now for the full RaceiQ data breakdown of the Galway Hurdle and the Galway Play. I haven't even got my head around who's running in those races yet. I can't do it, Paige. It's got to be flat right now. It has to be the flat. I'm happy to talk about Galway, but like you and I talked about Constitution Hill for 20 minutes before we started recording this, and then I realized, wait, what the hell are we doing? We're talking about good. No. And I'm enjoying this flat season. It's been good so far, so hopefully we'll keep it going. Okay, Paige Fuller, thank you so much. Race_IQ on X, RaceiQ. Just Google RaceiQ or DuckDuckGo. RaceiQ Data Racing TV. It's top class stuff from Paige, as always. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You'll notice I didn't berate you or lecture you or try and play some fun game. If we get 50 likes on this episode, we'll get Paige to do a full breakdown of the classic generation this year in RaceiQ. And we're going to do it for you anyway, but we would really like you to be part of the show and really part of what we do. And one way you can do that is to hit like. I don't want to be blackmailing you. I don't want to be guilt tripping you. Just will ask you, hit that like button. It's a massive help to us with the algorithm. Thank you very much. I may very well go more forceful in my like tactics next week. So it's easier if you just do it this way, so then I don't have to do that. From Paige Fuller and me, Emmet Kennedy, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again very, very soon on the Final Furlong podcast. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
Thanks for spending some time with us on the Final Furlong podcast. We're independent media, so if you like what we do, hit like, share, and subscribe. It's free, it's quick, and it genuinely helps. And if you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more where that came from. Don't miss out. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major platforms, and join us on the gravy train. The Final Furlong podcast, independent, unfiltered, and powered by you.